YouTube, back again, here to discuss a video I've been looking forward to making for a little bit. It's basically how to install a boost controller on the 1.4 Abarth. I'm sure you guys seen the channel before. So basically just a quick description. I have a big turbo Fiat. It's kind of been like overhauled to fit that turbo in a sense. It's kind of a bolt-on, but it's not, as discussed previously. I'm not going to get really into it. I want to do a little update too as far as the turbo goes. So, yeah, excuse this little oil mess I kind of missed. So I had an issue with the turbo. First issue, knock on wood, hopefully the last issue. So basically, what happened was it was just a manufacturer problem where this wastegate flapper right here, as you guys see, not the wastegate actuator, the flapper, because I got the actuator right here. I actually just reinstalled the turbo, had to take it off and put a new flapper on there. And the problem is a couple companies weren't able to fix that situation. So I had someone out here in Van Nuys, California, called Turbo Performance. They're in Van Nuys, awesome company, highly recommended. Only person that can help me out actually in California. They took a flapper from another type of model turbo, stuck it on there, welded it, fixed it in about 20 minutes. It's great. So hopefully that holds up. We'll see. Only time will tell, unfortunately. But anyways, just to get into it, manual boost controller. Some people say they don't work with the Abarth. I beg to differ. Then again, each car's computer is slightly different. Knock on wood, I have not ran any check engine lights with this setup. It's kind of a hokey setup in a sense, but I mean it works. It gets the job done. So first I want to go over what a boost controller is. Basically, a boost controller is, controls boost, sends X amount of pressure to the wastegate, which is this piece right here. And the wastegate is attached to the turbo. Right here, usually it's attached right here. And it goes on that flapper, pretty simple. Basically, when an X amount of pressure, depending on how much pressure you're running in your car, whatever the spring also is set to, it opens up. And that's pretty much it. I mean, that's basically the premise of how the wastegate works, is on pressure, and it opens up and it releases exhaust gases back into the downpipe. So your turbo doesn't blow up in a sense, because you can have all different types of problems. Now, what a boost controller does is it kind of interrupts how much pressure is developed between here and the boost controller that's on the car. Now, yeah, the car does come with a factory boost controller, which is fine. However, there's some issues that it doesn't work as great as it should. Whether there's boost spikes or in certain gears, the boost doesn't kick up as fast as you want it to go. That's why you cannot eliminate this. If you eliminate this, you're gonna have so many problems. That's why it's still plugged in. The vacuum line's routed a tad bit differently because I need to have a boost pressure source. This thing needs to see that there's air, at least in my opinion. It needs to show some sort of functionality, because if not, you'll just throw a code saying no boost detected. So I still have this one still hooked up to the factory, well, not factory, but the intake the intake still hooked up to the intake, so it still shows air going through here. This is also, it needs a pressure source. So mine is teed somewhere down here. I believe it's teed into the, I believe that one's teed into my manifold right now. So that's teed in, showing some sort of pressure source. And so basically, it keeps the computer happy. I've never ran check engine lights with this setup at all, even though some people say you're gonna run check engine lights. I have not. For this one down here, though, it goes to the wastegate. It's kind of a cheesy setup. I put a nipple on it. And I think having it in this area, it's a little hot, so it actually kind of depletes the rubber kind of quickly. So that's why it's kind of set up stupidly like that. I wouldn't recommend doing that. If you can get a nipple for it, that's great. Like a little vacuum hose, the end caps. This way it just doesn't leak boost or anything like that. So that's what I would do. I'm working on that right now. But to go over real quick, I do have the boost controller right there. It's kind of hard to see, but I do have it right there. Let's see if I can grab this little flashlight. Great flashlight right here, Craftsman, $4 at Sears, great deal. So here's the boost controller. As you see, this line, which is port 2 goes to my wastegate. Comes down here, is over there for now because I'm obviously working on the wastegate right now. And then the second one right here is going to be your pressure source. Now for me, it's a little different because if you've seen my previous videos, my turbo does not have a pressure source on the turbo. So I had to custom make a pressure source, which is located on my intercooler piping. Some people recommend post intercooler, some people say before the intercooler. My opinion is do it before the intercooler because you're going to have more accurate reading. Because once it passes the intercooler, there's some sort of percentage drop. I don't know the specs on my intercooler and how much drop there is, but I'd rather not deal with it, and I'd rather have the exact numbers that the turbo is pushing out right before the intercooler so I don't have any pressure drop. It's more accurate that way. So that's what I did for that. Now, it does come with another piece, which is kind of hard to see in here, but it does come with another piece right here, which is the sensor unit. I believe that's what it's called. And you just have to wire a vacuum line through that, and that one right there is connected through to my manifold, directly on the back of the manifold. It's not shared with my blow-off valve. I do have an aftermarket blow-off valve, which is my HKS, and it's not shared. You know, you can't share the lines. I mean, some people say you can. I keep my lines dedicated to the source that it needs to be dedicated to, if that makes sense. So that's not teed in with that blow-off valve. And so, yeah, sorry guys for the mess. I mean, the car's it's been sitting for a little bit, trying to get everything worked out. Took a little time to find a turbo person, like I said. So at the end of the day, I hooked it up. That's what it looks like inside. It's seated right here. Right there. So that is the Profec. Post a link in the description. It's a Greddy. For as far as wastegate settings, I'm not going to go over that because each individual person is going to want to tune it to their specifications. I will say this though, with a boost controller, you have to be extremely careful not to overboost. And that's going to come down to you fine-tuning it and figuring out what setting works for you. It's trial and error. Some forums, you can go over the other different forums. I've done a lot of research as far as how to get this done correctly. I've been to Veloster forums, I've been on Beamer forums, I've been all over the place looking to how to get this correctly. And so far, I mean, everything's kind of experimental on a car, you know? Like, I mean, to an extent, it's all an experiment. So far, everything's works fine. And I've been running setup for the past 6 to 8 months, perfectly fine. So, I just recommend is just careful with the overboosting, and that's the way I've done it so far. So you tune low first, and then slowly make adjustments. Your wastegate also has a lot to do with it, though. You see, I have the Forge wastegate, and I was running a yellow spring for a long time. Now, it might be coincidence that with that flapper being broken, that I wasn't boosting correctly, so I switched to the blue spring, which so far has worked out pretty decently. But for the most part, the wastegate, the manual boost controller was really helping out not having that extra spring force. It was kind of delaying, or not necessarily delaying, but it was regulating the pressure. So it was, the yellow spring was holding the wastegate shut. So it was holding it shut. The boost controller did what it was supposed to, and I mean that's basically the gist of it. So yeah, so that's how I installed the boost controller on this car. Like I said, you're just gonna you gotta keep that plugged in if you're gonna do it. And I did run for the actual unit itself that's located on my dashboard. There's I'm sure you can find it on one of the forums if you look it up. There's only one hole that I could find in the firewall. I did not have to cut it like some people did. I've also ran my amp through that, but there is a little tiny, it's very hard to catch. So it's back here. It's a little gasket. That's like a cap that you can pop off and it'll run straight through it. And you should be good to go as far as wiring it through your firewall. But other than that, that's a quick, simple breakdown. It's super easy to install. It doesn't take a ton of work. Greddy does include a couple key elements as far as install stuff. They do have the hoses and whatnot, so you should be set to go on as far as that goes. So if you guys decide to do that, and you have any questions or concerns, let me know. Like I said, This is all up to you guys and how you guys want to tune it. I'm not responsible if you guys blow up your engine because you're over boosting, or you blow your turbo out, or spin your turbine too fast because of overboost, or whatever the case is. But yeah, that's just a quicker tutorial on how to install it. And if you have any questions, let me know. Alright guys, peace out.